In tutorial 7, we're going to work on the smooth camera follow with zoom as well. If you go to your scenes, and inside your scenes in the project tab, go down just to tutorial 7. Double click on that, it'll open up the right scene that we're going to work from. Inside the hierarchy, we have a actor. Go ahead and go into the actor, into the prefab. There is a main camera. If you click on the main camera, you're going to see inside the inspector, you'll see a camera smooth follow component. Go ahead and double click on the script itself to open it up. And when it opens up, you should have a file like this. This will just be an empty function update. What we want to do with this one, we want to create the basic camera similar to the one that Unity currently has, but we're going to add several elements to it. So we'll go ahead and just start from scratch. We'll build it up, and we'll just work it over that way. So at the very top, let's go ahead and just add some variables that we need for it. Now again, remember, if this is going to be a complex camera, which even this one is, you would want to have documents on it. You want to make sure that you're actually following a guideline of rules and variable types that you set out at the very beginning. For this one, we do want to make sure we have a variable, which is going to be our camera target. And the camera target is just going to be, we're actually not going to check for transform, but we're going to check for the full game object. Alright, and we'll do another one, which we're going to say is going to be our player. So ours is going to be a little bit different than the standard one in that we're going to have two different ways that we're actually looking for the character. So again, we'll do the game object on it, and might as well go ahead and comment while we're doing this one. Always good form to do that. Say object to look at, or follow. And then for this one, we're just going to say player object for moving. Alright, so some of the variables that we need inside of here, we're going to set up a variable for smooth time. And this is just going to allow us to have some time for the camera dampen. That way it's smoother instead of like a hard rigid. But it also provides you the opportunity to set it at whatever type you want it to be. So we'll do a float for this one, and we'll just set it to a 0.1. Alright, so we'll have time for camera dampen on this one. And we'll do another variable. We're going to call this one camera follow X. And we could even call it follow horizontal or follow vertical. Whichever way would be easier to actually read it. So let's see. We'll do a boolean on this one. And for this, we'll set it to true to start with. Since we want to have just a basic camera setup, we'll go ahead and have both the X and the Y set to true so that it's following both directions with the player. So camera follows on horizontal. Alright. And same thing on this one, we'll just change the camera follow to Y. And that'll be true, follows on vertical. Alright. Then we'll go ahead and set another one. We're going to make another camera type. This one we'll actually have is going to be the following the height. So we're going to say camera follow height. And what that basically means is that we can turn on or off the camera following a defined height for us. So we'll say this is going to be another boolean. And this one, we'll go ahead and set this one to false. That way we can just toggle it on if we actually do want it inside. And this one's going to, the camera is going to follow the camera target. Object, height, not the Y. Alright. So we have our statements for the camera. We got a couple more. We actually need to set a camera height. So we'll do a variable called camera height. And the camera height we'll just set as a float variable here. And for this one, let's go ahead and set this one. Now, this is just an arbitrary number. Once you drop it into the scene, you'll start to find out what number you want it. And then at that point, we'll want to be able to change this number here first so that when we drop it in or reset the variables, it comes up closer to the right number. For this though, if we have a set for this one, this is basically just to set the height of the camera and make it adjustable in the inspector so that if I'm inside of here and my camera's too low in the scene, I can actually grab the dial here on the inspector and move it up and down. So just bringing one of the variables out to the surface. So again, we'll say that the camera. Let's see, we'll just say height of camera. It's going to be adjustable in the inspector. Alright. Okay, so we have our basic setup for the variables we need on this one. We can do a couple others, and this is just kind of following along one of the ways that they do theirs for their camera, is that they have a they've got a this transform, which is actually just this game object, meaning this camera transform, and they've just labeled it as this transform. So we'll set that one in as well. The private variable, so that we just access it from here, and there's no reason to have it up inside the inspector. So if we have this transform, and this one will just be transform type, and it's just going to be cameras transform. Alright, so we've got that one, and we have those set. That's pretty much all that we need for this at the moment. Eventually we'll want to set in, when we start adding to it, it's going to be adding to the for the zoom, being able to zoom the camera in and out based on the player's jump. So that if the player jumps really high, the camera will pull back and actually show the character at a distance, and then the camera zooms back in. So it'll be a fun little feature we could add, and it could even be ones that it's specific to just a jump type rather than jumping all the time. Alright, so let's go ahead and get started with the initialization and set up the update. Also, we're going to need a speed on this one. Let's do one more variable. We'll make a variable for a vector. So we'll say velocity is what we'll call it for speed. So we'll do one more. We'll make this one a velocity. And this one is just going to be the x and y, so we just need a vector 2 on it. Alright. So now that we have this one, we'll just have this as the speed of camera movement. Alright. And let's go ahead and adjust these so that they're even with the current one. Alright. That'll get us set up for the top part. We haven't actually placed anything up here yet. We could put stuff up there, but we'll go ahead and just kind of keep working on the code for a moment. So the first one, let's go ahead and actually create a function start. Oops. Alright, so in our function start, we need to go ahead and set the transform of this object. So we're just going to say that this one, we're just going to say that this transform is equal to transform. Alright, so this transform, which is right here, we're actually just making it equal to this transform. Now, again, we don't actually have to put this word in. We could actually just use transform all the way through. This is all very just dependent on how you want to write your code, so that when you're reading the code, does it read the way you want it to read. You could also say, again, you could even do it this way. You could say this.transform as well, referring to this object. So either way or both ways would work while you're working through the code. So on initialization, we'll go ahead and set that one to it. And then inside the update, let's go ahead and set up the basic follow camera that Unity has for theirs, and then we'll start working from there with it. If we go back into the inspector, one thing that we should notice, let's see, looks like we've got an issue with this one at line 16. Let's double check. Oh, I capitalized that one. There we go. Inside the inspector, one of the things that we want to look at is just going to be the variables that we do have available. So the ones that we created, it's going to be asking for a camera target, and then we have a player object. So the reason these are separated is so that, for instance, with Mario, if we wanted, we don't have to have Mario as the target. He can actually be completely separate of the equation. We could place in, which we'll do, is place in a separate focus point for the target, just simply linked to the player, and then we'll have player so that we can actually work on the zoom in and out for it. And again, we've got those two. We also have the smooth time to dampen the speed, and we've got our follow X, Y, and height, and then we have the adjustable height for the camera. Alright, so we almost got everything that we need at the moment. Again, when we get into the zoom, we'll add additional variables to it. For the update, though, just to make the standard camera work, we're currently checking for a Boolean, for a true-false statement on the X and the Y, horizontal and vertical. So let's go ahead and actually start off with two of our checks. We're going to say that if the camera follow X, we're going to say that if camera follow X is true, meaning that all we have to do is say, we don't have to put is equal to true, just say that if this statement is true, then we're going to do what's inside of its code block right here. Alright, and then we have another one that we're saying is that if the other is true, so we'll say that if camera follow Y is true, then we're going to do what's in the following block for it. And then we have the couple additional ones as well, is that we can say for the camera follow height, then we're going to check for one additional element here. And we can go ahead and set these up. We could also set them up later, but this one we're actually going to say that if the camera follow Y is false, so meaning the one that goes up and down, if this is unchecked, so if I uncheck this one, and this one's checked, so we want to say if this is true, so and the camera follow, camera follow height, and if camera follow height is actually true, so this has to be false, and this has to be true, then we could actually do what's inside of this code. Alright. So starting up with the camera follow X, let's go ahead and get going with this one. The first thing that we want to do is we can say this transform, because we want to actually have the transform of this camera. And we want to basically make the camera X and Y both follow the position of whatever target we have, our camera target. So again, it could be the player, it could be another object inside the scene. So we'll take the this transform, and we're going to take the position of it. So the position, since we're looking for the X position, we're going to get the position.x. And this one is actually going to equal the other one. However, we want to create that, you know how that smooth lag that goes on with the camera? In order to create that, we want to use one of their math functions. This is just going to be the smooth dampen. If we were to look that one up real fast, and again, this is one of those things that if you're creating it from scratch, you just want to type in, say for instance, I have smooth. I can look at, there's a smooth delta time, there's actually a smooth dampen angle, there's a smooth dampen. So we've got a set of these already set in place. Just by typing in smooth, we start to get an idea of what's available. We want it to be able to we want to be able to use a math type for it. It looks like it says interpolates between the minimum and maximum and eases in and out at the limits. So it sounds pretty much like what we want to use. So if we just go to this one, you'll see that we even get a very clear example of how to use it. Also, what's available inside is the from, where it's going, and the time that it takes to get there. Alright, so let's go ahead and just work over this one. So if I was doing the camera X position, I would just want to say we've got math F right here, and we'll do, make sure it's actually lowercase. We'll do the smooth damp, and inside of it, again, the parameters for this one are going to be the from. So where are we going from? The from is going to be from this camera. So we'll say this transform. And the transform is going to be from the position.x, okay? And our position.x at this point, now that where do we want it to go to? We want it to go to our camera target. So if you remember the camera target right here, this is going to be what we drop in. So we want it to follow to the camera target. So our camera target.transform, we'll fix that in a second, transform.position.x. Alright, so we have our camera target, the transform of it, the position, and on the x value. Alright, and then the last part that we actually want to place in is going to be the velocity of it and the time that it takes to get there. And let's double check real quick, make sure we're actually looking at the right one here. I think we were on the smooth step, yeah. what we're looking for was the smooth damp, and that actually has one additional property, which is the smooth time, and then the max speed over here for that one. So let's make sure we get all the right ones in here. The speed, so for instance on this one, we've got our initial point where we're trying to go to. The speed we want to use, which is what we have up here, is our velocity. So we'll use our velocity on this one, and then we'll end it with a smooth time. Alright, this should set us up a little bit better. So we'll do the velocity, we're going left and right, so it's going to be on the X for this one. And for the last time, the smooth, is going to be smooth time. Okay. So that will give us all the properties that we need to fill in. And at this point, we could actually, if we were to save this, we could go into Unity, and with the character, instead of the character object, let's actually go with the additional one. You see a player focus inside a character? The player focus is actually straight above the character. It's designed so that the camera will look up higher. That way, like when you're playing Mario, typically the Mario character, the camera is set so that you're seeing the scene pretty low on the ground, not centered. So we'll take the player focus and drag it onto the camera target right here. Okay. So if we have that one, then if I go up here and I click on play, I'll notice that the camera itself actually focuses on that point. Let's make sure that it's actually moving here. Yeah. There we go. So we actually have the movement happening with it. Now this is, again, remember, we're just doing the X right here. So it's following the character this way. If we do a jump, it's not going to see anything. The camera itself doesn't move up because it's actually not looking for the Y. It's just placed exactly where it was before. Alright, so let's go ahead and jump into the Y. That way we can see how this one works. So on the Y-axis, it's going to be almost the exact same as the X-axis. We could even copy this one and paste it down here on the Y. The catch, though, is that on the position, you just want to change the position to Y for each one of the X points. Alright, so if you change those, that's actually going to give you the smooth dampen for the Y-axis. But also on this one, we'll actually, let's see, we don't have this one going yet, so we'll hold off on it. If we have that one set in, that means that when we come back over here and we press play, watch where the camera goes once it starts up. Now the camera moved all the way up to where the player focus, this player focus, is up here. So it's actually even with the main camera right there. Alright, so that's going to allow the scene to actually go down, but it also means that when the player jumps, the camera is going to follow the character with a jump. Alright, so if I was to actually go over here and jump up, the camera is going to move the entire scene up, showing just that part of it. Alright, so now we have a nice, very smooth movement with our camera. We also have the ability to turn these on and off whenever we want. So for instance, on the camera follow, say we don't want it to follow the Y anymore, all I have to do is uncheck this one, and or like within script, I could just set that one to false at any point during the game if I wanted to make sure that the player only followed the X-axis. And the same goes with the X. If I was to turn this one off, we now have a static camera that actually doesn't move at all inside the scene, and it's just going to sit there in the one spot. Alright, and we could do the same for just Y only. That way if we were to jump, it only does the upward movement. Alright, so both of those very valuable, especially if you're looking to do different types of scenarios with him. If he was actually going up a tube, or he was, maybe the floor was moving straight up, and you didn't want the scene to go left and right, you just wanted it to follow him upwards, then being able to just check one of these, or turn it on through script, that would be pretty valuable to it. Alright, so that's going to be the two options we have here to do the follow the X and the Y. The last one we want to do is follow the camera, just the height of the variable over here. Alright, so let's go ahead and set this one up. Alright, so with this one, we just actually want to set the camera itself. We're just going to say that the camera and the transform of it on the position Y. So again, we're just accessing all the way down to the Y's position, and we're just going to say that it equals the camera height. So again, this one, the camera height, this allows us to actually just set directly the camera's current position to equal whatever variable we place in for this height. Alright. So at that point, if we were to save this, and we go in here, if we were to play it, so we'll say for instance right now, it's going to play through and have both of these, so it's going to be standard what we had. But if I go over here and I check on this one and uncheck this one, so notice what just happened. You see that when this one becomes false, it winds up actually matching our current if statement. If this is false and this one's true, so false and true, then camera height is actually adjustable through it this way. So now I can actually move the camera up and down until I get to the point that I like. But at the same time, it could be something like this, is that you start off with a scene where everything's off the scene. Then you could actually adjust through a lerp or a smooth dampen even, and have it where it just goes all the way down, and it shows the character, then the smooth height gets turned off, the camera gets turned on, whichever way you'd like to play it out. So completely adjustable there, just gives us another option to really fine-tune and tweak how we want the scene to look and how we want to have the controls. Alright, so that's going to finish off our camera for the smooth follow portion. The next part that we're going to look at is actually the zooming in and out for the camera.